This video is produced by Nikhil Sablania. Let us understand the impact of industrialization on woman through the writings of Karl Marx. The late 18th and early 19th centuries witnessed a seismic shift in human history, the Industrial Revolution. This period of unprecedented technological advancement, particularly in Britain, transformed societies from agrarian economies to industrial powerhouses. Factories sprouted across the landscape, their smokestacks becoming symbols of progress and innovation, but also of profound societal upheaval. This program delves into the often overlooked consequences of industrialization, particularly its impact on women and children, as analyzed by Karl Marx in his seminal work. The Industrial Revolution, with its promise of efficiency and prosperity, brought about unforeseen and often detrimental changes to the lives of working-class families. As we will see, the introduction of machinery not only altered the nature of work, but also exacerbated existing social inequalities, pushing women and children into increasingly precarious and exploitative labor conditions. This period marked a turning point in history, the ramifications of which continue to resonate today. At the heart of the Industrial Revolution lay a paradox. The very machines designed to ease human labor ended up demanding more of it, particularly from the most vulnerable members of society. Karl Marx dissects this phenomenon, arguing that the rise of machinery created a new demand for workers who could be paid less and controlled more easily. This demand, coupled with the destruction of traditional cottage industries, forced women and children out of their homes and into factories where they faced long hours, dangerous conditions, and meager wages. The logic of early capitalism dictated that profits could be maximized by minimizing labor costs. This logic dovetailed perfectly with the capabilities of new machinery. Machines, unlike skilled artisans, did not require years of training or command high wages. They could be operated by anyone, even children, with minimal instruction. This created a perverse incentive for factory owners to prefer women and children, who were often seen as more docile, more easily replaceable, and less likely to organize against their employers. The influx of women and children into the industrial workforce represented a significant shift in the composition of the labor market. Prior to industrialization, women's work, though essential, was largely confined to the domestic sphere or to small-scale cottage industries. Children, too, contributed to the family economy, but their labor was often seasonal and integrated with their upbringing. Industrialization shattered these traditional patterns, propelling women and children into the heart of the factory system. This shift had profound social consequences. The separation of women from the home, even if for grueling hours in factories, challenged traditional gender roles and family structures. Children, once viewed as dependents in need of nurturing and education, were now seen as units of production, their labor valued solely for its cheapness and abundance. This transformation, driven by the relentless pursuit of profit, lay at the heart of Marx's critique of capitalism. Marx argued that the exploitation of women and children was not an unfortunate byproduct of industrialization, but rather an inherent feature of the capitalist system itself. He posited that capitalists, driven by the imperative to maximize profit, would inevitably seek to extract as much labor as possible from their workers for the least possible cost. This dynamic, he believed, was especially pronounced in the case of women and children, who lacked the legal protections and social standing of adult male workers. Women and children, often desperate for any income to support their families, were particularly vulnerable to exploitation. They were routinely paid less than men for the same work, and their wages were often seen as supplementary to their husbands' or fathers' incomes, further depressing their bargaining power. This created a vicious cycle of poverty and dependence, with generations of working-class families trapped in a system that offered little hope for advancement. In the wake of the devastating famine, communities were left in shambles, struggling to survive. The scarcity of food led to widespread malnutrition and weakened immune systems. As if that wasn't enough, a deadly fever began to spread, preying on the already vulnerable population. Families were torn apart and the social fabric of entire regions started to unravel. The once thriving villages turned into ghost towns, echoing with the cries of the afflicted. It was a time of unimaginable suffering, and the resilience of the human spirit was put to the ultimate test. Child labor was rampant during the Industrial Revolution. Children as young as 5 years old were employed in factories, mines, and other hazardous environments. These children worked long hours, often in dangerous conditions, with little to no access to education. The lack of education perpetuated a cycle of poverty, making it nearly impossible for these children to improve their circumstances. In response to the growing concerns about child labor, some reformers pushed for legislation to protect these young workers. However, early attempts at reform were often flawed and inadequately enforced. Many employers found ways to circumvent the laws, and the exploitation of child labor continued. Despite these efforts, meaningful change remained elusive. Karl Marx was one of the most vocal critics of the capitalist system that emerged during the Industrial Revolution. He argued that capitalism inherently exploited workers, including children, for the benefit of the wealthy elite. Marx believed that true liberation could only be achieved through a radical restructuring of society, where the means of production were owned collectively. The legacy of the Industrial Revolution continues to echo in our modern world. While many advancements have been made, issues such as child labor and economic inequality persist in various forms. Understanding the historical context of these problems is crucial as we strive to create a more equitable and just society. This video is produced by Nikhil Sablania. To read the books of Karl Marx, call us or order on our website. Call us on 85275330, 51 or 88511887170, or order books on nsbmart.com.